Well, unless you've been living under a rock, you probably are aware that the biggest IPO in history is taking place this week on Friday. That's right, Elon Musk is preparing the largest IPO in human history. SpaceX, as you know, targeting a valuation of 1.75 trillion with an IPO price of $135 a share. It would make it worth more than, if, at that price, every other American defense contractor combined, just as a point of reference. So this IPO has internally been codenamed Project Apex. I'm Tom, the Investing Tiger, and in this episode, we are going to break down a little bit of the background on SpaceX, where their risks are, where their opportunities are, and let's face it, if you're on the fence, should you invest in it? Should you not? I'm not going to nudge you one way or the other. Hopefully, I'm going to give you a little background, a little bit of insight, so you can round out your decision a little bit more, and hopefully across the way, make it a little more understandable and interesting. So let me break down exactly what SpaceX is, where it came from, where it stands today, and whether this $1.75 trillion valuation represents the opportunity of a lifetime or an overhyped trap for retail investors. So we have to go back to March of 2002. Most people didn't realize that. That's when SpaceX was actually incorporated. And Elon Musk, he founded the company after he sold PayPal. That was a good move. And Musk's goal was revolutionary. His idea then was to reduce space transportation costs by 95% and to enable colonization on Mars. And those are, I remember when SpaceX was founded, it's like, those are really dreamy ideas. Holy cow, 20 something years go by quickly. Now, at the time launching a rocket was about almost $16,000 the cost per kilogram. And he wasn't the first to try this. Legacy aerospace companies like Boeing and Orbital Sciences, they dominated the market at the time. NASA, they were backing out and really retreating from launching spacecraft except to low Earth orbit. It just wasn't economically feasible. And Musk realized that rocket components, they're only about maybe 3% of the total launch cost. The rest is pure inefficiency in the process. So let's move forward to about 2012. And that's where we started seeing a little bit more traction there. In 2012, the company's first rocket was what was called Falcon 1, and it failed. It failed 3 times. Doesn't sound good so far. So that made SpaceX the first company in 2008, when they actually did succeed, the first private company to send a liquid fuel rocket into orbit. And by 2012, SpaceX delivered a cargo to the International Space Station with its Dragon spacecraft. And by 2020, they launched astronauts. And that was the first crewed launch by a private firm. So in 20 years, or close to 20 years, from the drawing board to failing a couple times, a lot of progress was made. But over a long period of time, that rate of acceleration is definitely quicker from here. And that is the case with most technological advancements. So today, SpaceX, where are they now? Because that's what potential investors are buying. Where are they now? And I think the question is, where are they going? Is this going to make money? So today, SpaceX has grown from it grew from about 160 employees to over 10,000 today. And some of them, congratulations, are going to do quite well with this IPO on Friday. But SpaceX today really has 3 businesses. And I want to bring these together so you can understand how to think through this. So the first business, this is where the cash flow, and the profitable business, the high margin business and the high growth business is coming from. This is the today piece, in my opinion. Starlink, that's the satellite internet services. To give you an idea of growth and size, a couple of years ago, back in 2023, there were about 2.3 million subscribers. Today, as of early 2026, we're closing in on 11 million subscribers. That business alone enjoys about a 63% profit margin. So it scales, it's growing, it's scaling, and a very high profit margin attached to it. That's what's carrying it forward. When you read the S1, that's like, from an investor standpoint, that's the appetite of, this is where the money's coming from today. The potential there is for that to see maybe a total addressable market, a TAM of $160 billion 5-6 years out. Now, the second thing, this is what most people traditionally think of when they think of a space company. launch services and the foundation. This is the foundation. So right now, in 2025, SpaceX conducted what's called 165 orbital launches. That was in 2025. That is close to 90% of all spacecraft that was launched. So they have a commanding lead in that area. But where are they going? I think that's the most important thing. So it's estimated when you look at the S1 and back into it and do the math, by 2028, we're going to be looking at two plus launches a day. And I think that's where it really starts to get interesting. And that's where you start to see people line up for that. I'll talk about this in a second. This really ties into the third piece. You may have heard, and I'll connect the dots for you, late last year and early this year, the acquisition or the deal closed where XAI was brought into SpaceX. And there's a reason for that. A lot of companies, this is going to be the engine that the brains behind the engine to enable this growth. And we're already seeing, if you think about it this way, if one man controls the rocket ship where we're trying to go for the space economy, gee, I better get in line. So a lot of people are hoping, and we're seeing deals like if you've seen the Anthropic deal, Anthropic is paying roughly $1 billion per month to use the excess compute that SpaceX has on hand right now. Now there's a 90-day buy cancellation on that. Either party can cancel with 90 days notice. And just yesterday, or maybe the day before, Google announced a very similar deal. So it's kind of interesting. The way I read that is some of those companies are saying, you know what, we need the AI compute now, and we are going to need it in the future. And if non-Earth orbital data centers become the place to be, I want to get in line. I want to get my ticket so I can participate. So I'm keeping a close eye on that. All right. So your head can spin reading through this. When you start reading about the future total TAM on this, you start seeing 28 trillion, $30 trillion. We've got a company that basically had a $5 billion profit just from one segment. I should better say they're losing $5 billion in general. It's hard to see the point from where they are now to where they're going to go. And it may happen. It may not happen. Some of it is probably going to happen. I would hesitate and say all of it's going to happen. Kathy Wood from ARK Invest, she holds about a lot of private shares. About 17% of their holdings are SpaceX right now. And she puts about a $26 trillion TAM out there. Seems kind of rich. Then I also have to look at it from the other standpoint. We just talked about the cost of space travel was almost $16,000 a kilogram, and that's been brought down to $1,000. This is the important part from a monetization standpoint. We need that thing called Wright's Law to kick in. That's where costs keep just decelerating. So the order of magnitude we really need to see is to have it go from about $1,000 to $100 a kilogram. We get to that figure, it's a lot more commercially viable. So that's what people are lining up for and hoping and betting. So obviously, why should you be cautious? None of this could happen. Things can get. This is emerging technology. It's never going to happen as quick as you'd expect. When we talked about the early history of SpaceX, look, it took them to get almost 20 years to get from incorporation to a person in space. Okay. That took 20 years. Well, this isn't going to happen. This isn't going to happen in the next 90 days. So I think if you're hitching your wagon to SpaceX long term, there's a few things that really need to play out. If you're expecting big changes over the next 30, 60, 90 days, this is going to trade like a very volatile piece. So it really depends on your time horizon. So I want to talk about IPOs in general. So when I think about IPOs, this is a completely different IPO. Not only from a hype standpoint, I have never seen the IPO deal structured quite like this. I hesitate investing in IPOs. I've bought 3 IPOs. I've bought 3 IPOs after they went public and traded a little bit. But this one I recognize is completely different. I lean to a much more long-term optimistic view on SpaceX. It's just a matter of when, what, and how much to get in. It's hard to measure and quantify what this is going to be. But when I talk about IPOs in general, the IPO price is not what most investors are going to pay. There are going to be the shares that are issued at $135. Some people are going to get allocated that. This is going to start trading sometime during the day on Friday, late morning, probably early afternoon, because it is very heavily oversubscribed. So where it's actually going to open and trade throughout the day is going to be quite interesting. I would suspect it's going to go up quite a bit. I don't think there's going to be. So the reason I formed that opinion is I think this could run away, maybe as much as 50%, 100%. Gee, how about making predictions 2 or 3 days before something takes place? We're going to see how well this actually lives. The reason I come up with that is I don't see where the selling force is going to be. There's a lot more a buying appetite hyped up on this stock right now. A couple of reasons why from institutions. The door of institutions looking to buy is is quite long. You've got a heavy retail flow. The larger shareholder, Elon Musk, 51% or so of the outstanding shares, he can't touch it for a year. So he's got a lockup period for a year. I know employees, about 5%, have the opportunity to sell, and that I think could easily be absorbed by the flows I just mentioned. And then the biggest thing, this makes it strange. There's a new rule that is in place related to large cap IPOs, and we haven't seen this before. SpaceX is the first one that fits this bill. They're going to go right to the indexes. So by the end of the month, they'll be in the Qs and the NASDAQ 100, and then not too much longer into things like the S&P 500. So those funds have to buy it, and they have to buy it in scale with the holdings. So I think there's going to be a lot of on the price, and not follow the traditional model of the way most IPOs just pump. They inflate quite a bit. So it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out long term. Now, I did a little bit of research, and this is pretty interesting. I was starting to think, how many IPOs? So my approach has always been wait till it actually trades for a little bit. Let it come back, because they almost always come back after they launch. So when I was looking at this, I only found 2 cases in the last 10 years, and you can really go back about 20 years. So I put a criteria out there. What IPOs traded and never went below their IPO price? There were only 2 cases, and if you can guess these, congratulations to you. The 2 cases were Alibaba, and that was back in 2014. The IPO price was about $68. It peaked at $93 on the first day, but never traded below $68. The other case, we have to go back a bit further, it was very equally hyped, was Google. And that was back in 2004. Never went below its IPO price of $85. Is SpaceX, does it have the same DNA? I think there's an outside chance it probably does, that we don't see $135 after the IPO. I could be wrong, but I think things are lining up. If there's an IPO to break that mold, this could be it. Doesn't mean you have to rush in and buy it, but I think that's the case. I'd also think about a couple of other things with this IPO. There is lack of profitability, $18 billion in revenue in 25 against $5 billion in losses. And most of that revenue just comes from Starlink right now. Third thing I'd be careful about is delays. Starship delays in development. And this is we got to get down to that $100 per kilogram launch cost. The quicker that can get to it, the quicker I think you see the monetization of this story really take place. A couple of other things I'd think about is, there's always the regulatory and geopolitical risks that weighs into it. This makes people very uncomfortable at times. It's going to be a very heavily controlled company. Remember what I just said? Elon Musk owns the controlling share 50%. Oh, and then there's that whole moving part. That's going to be a separate episode. does SpaceX and Tesla merge? If I'm a Tesla investor, does it help me? Does it hurt me? Do I buy Tesla to back into SpaceX? A lot of that's just pure madness and speculation to think through. That I always guide. If you want to own the company, own the company. Don't try to necessarily outrig the system. And then, of course, there's massive indebtedness at this right time. It's going to take scale. It's really going to take scale to clear that out. And at best case, I estimate, late 27, maybe 2028, you really see the picture start changing. So what is the bottom line? At this point, we're a couple of days before the IPO. Maybe you're watching this and it's already IPO, and you can sit back and chuckle to some of the things I've shared because we'll have actual proof on our side. But at this point in time, I think you know what you know, and you know if it's going to be right for you. But with a SpaceX, a target price of, like I said, $1.7 trillion and change, the opportunity that Starlink brings to the table, 10 million subscribers and growing quick, the risk, there's it's probably about a 70% revenue valuation. I know earlier a week or two ago, before the Anthropic and Google deals were publicized, we're probably running at a closer to 100% revenue valuation. It's probably down in the 70s now, because that is real revenue. Might not count on it long term, but that could really bridge the gap. That's improving some of the valuation here in the short term. But again, this is not investment advice. Do your research. I'd start with the public S1 prospectus that's out there. There's an amendment to it. It'll provide some financial transparency, but I would think, how would this line up to what your goals are long term? I'm particularly keen on it because I think it paints in one offering a lot of the key opportunities we're really going to be talking a lot about on this show. We're going to be talking about AI. We're going to be talking about the space economy. We're going to be talking about robotics. I'm going to talk a lot about autonomous driving, but this touches a lot of those emerging areas. And I don't know who's going to win, what's going to win. It's going to be like watching. There are going to be quick spurts, and then it's going to stall out for a little bit, and you're going to have to wait a couple of quarters. But directionally, that's where we're going. I'm excited. I take a 1,000-day view, so essentially 3 years. Say, 1,000 days from now, this is a picture where we are now, where I think we're going. And I kind of screen out those people that are always projecting all the optimism. They're going to hurt you. And then I also look at the heretics out there, the people that say nothing's going to work. Those folks aren't your friend. That's my kind of take on it. You know what you're going to do at this point in time. If you're undecided, I'd love to know what your take on the SpaceX IPO is. Drop it in the comments. And thank you for watching.